Hello, everybody, and welcome to Penguins to Go, your daily dose of Pittsburgh Penguins news and analysis. You can find us on YouTube at Inside the Penguins or anywhere you get your podcasts from. Well, if you tuned in to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast yesterday, we told you that we were guaranteed to get Penguins news this week, and here it is. The Penguins have re-signed forward Drew O'Connor to a 2-year contract worth $925,000 against the NHL's salary cap. O'Connor was the lone Pittsburgh Penguin this season to file for salary arbitration. He was set for his hearing this Friday, but he and the team, of course, came to a deal before that deadline. It's a good deal for Kyle Dubas on the surface. I know that it's hard to really judge a lot of these contracts, a lot of these deals until you see how they play on the ice, but considering the trajectory that Drew O'Connor has taken in his 3 years since signing with the Pittsburgh Penguins out of college, it feels like this is a good contract for them. O'Connor is coming off of a career-high season. He still played about 20 games at the AHL level last year, had over a point per game at the AHL, but he set career highs when he played at the NHL level. 46 games played, 5 goals, 6 assists, and 11 points. He also set a career high in hits with 63. So yes, he has taken steps forward year over year, which is exactly what you want to see out of a young player, an undrafted player like Drew O'Connor. He proved that he has an offensive upside in 78 games played over the past 3 seasons, which is pretty much a full season sample size. He scored 8 goals. I would say that going forward, his ceiling is probably somewhere between 10 to 15, right? Especially in recent seasons, he started to show a little bit more that he is going to be able to provide some depth scoring, especially on a Penguins team that is going to sorely need it. He's not a 20-goal guy. He's not a 25-goal guy. 10 to 15 is probably the safe range that you could expect for Drew O'Connor moving forward. He showed some of that offense this summer, too, when he played in the World Championships for Team USA. The important thing, though, even though 8 points in 10 games is nice, the important thing for me, though, is that he played center for Team USA. That just gives him a little bit more clout with Mike Sullivan. Because as we all know, Mike Sullivan absolutely loves players that can play multiple positions. Drew O'Connor has primarily played the wing when he's been on the Pittsburgh Penguins for his first 3 seasons. And I'm assuming that he's going to start there as well this season because the Penguins brought in Lars Eller. The Penguins brought in Noel Acciari. They still have technically Mikael Granlund, who we'll get to in a minute. They still have Jeff Carter. They have a lot of players, especially in the bottom 6, that can take faceoffs. Something that obviously is very important to Mike Sullivan, and you can add Drew O'Connor to that list. Again, looking at O'Connor's ceiling, 10 to 15 goals, middle 6 contributor for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now more so third liner, but I would not be surprised that if somebody goes down, knock on wood that doesn't happen, in the top 6, that Drew O'Connor gets an opportunity up there. Because he's everything Mike Sullivan loves in a player. He has the foot speed. He forechecks his ass off. He back checks, and he plays physical. He does have that offensive upside, but the other things are what allowed him to break through at a young age, whereas a lot of the other young players on the Pittsburgh Penguins, or at least younger players on the Pittsburgh Penguins, aren't able to really stick at the NHL over the past couple of years. Drew O'Connor has been able to steadily increase his playing time year after year. And that's because he does all the things that Mike Sullivan loves from a player. His physicality is not abrupt, right? He's not going to make that bone-shattering hit that's going to be replayed time after time. He's not going to get the Subway sandwich of the game or the Edgar Snyder and Associates hit of the game. He's not going to make that hit. But more often than not, he is going to lay a body check or 2 or 3 during a game, and he's going to play every single shift the same exact way. That consistency is important, particularly for somebody playing in a bottom 6 role on a team where the top six is going to be relied on so heavily for offense that you need consistency out of that bottom six, and they need to be able to just continue the momentum the way the top six left it when they got off the ice. Drew O'Connor is a player that I believe does that. And like I mentioned, he's probably going to be one of the youngest players in this lineup next season. So that doesn't hurt as well. Now, the big question that a lot of people asked immediately after this signing went down, because the Penguins and O'Connor avoided salary arbitration. They stayed away from the arbiters table by signing this contract 2 days before the arbitration case was set to be heard. A lot of people's question then became, well, do they still get the second buyout window? And the answer to that is yes. Because the Pittsburgh Penguins and Drew O'Connor reached what would be considered, in this instance, a settlement pre-arbitration. And according to the CBA, it says the second buyout window is triggered on the third day after the club's last salary arbitration award or settlement. In this case, it's a settlement. Hence, the Penguins will be awarded with a 48-hour second buyout window beginning on Saturday and running through next Monday. So they're not currently on the clock, but you can set your watches to Saturday and then start the clock between Saturday and Monday for the Penguins to potentially buy out a contract. According to Cap Friendly, the Pittsburgh Penguins are currently, now with this contract, about $3.1 million over the NHL salary cap, which is allowed at the time because, as we know, in the offseason, you're allowed to go 8 or 10% over the NHL salary cap. Obviously, they're still involved in the Erik Karlsson conversations. Obviously, they're going to need to get rid of some of that salary. They have 24 roster players right now instead of 23 with that $3.1 million over. So clearly they'll have to send one or two players down to begin with. But when it comes to the buyout window, obviously the number one name that'll come up is Mikael Granlund. 2 years remaining, $5 million remaining on his contract. Do the Pittsburgh Penguins buy out Mikael Granlund? Another name that nobody really has mentioned, because it's been a name that has kind of faded to the background this offseason with all the other rough contracts on the Pittsburgh Penguins and decisions that have been made surrounding the Pittsburgh Penguins. Jan Rutta. That would be another interesting name to me to potentially be bought out. The Pittsburgh Penguins currently have 8 NHL defensemen on the NHL roster according to Cap Friendly, and they're trying to acquire another one. Now, obviously, if they acquire Erik Karlsson, a defenseman's going to go back in that deal. But I think Jan Rutta is an underrated name to watch out for this weekend when it comes to the Penguins' second buyout window. Do I think that he's going to get bought out? No. I think if there's going to be a buyout, it's probably going to be Mikael Granlund. We went over what the actual award is for a buyout for Mikael Granlund. The Penguins would be saving over $4 million in cap space this year with a Mikael Granlund buyout, and then it would be $1.8 million against the cap the following 3 seasons, meaning that they would save a little over $3 million next year, and then it would cost them $1.8 in dead cap the following 2 seasons. So there's going to be something else to look out for. Now, is it guaranteed news like we had with the Drew O'Connor thing coming into this week? No, because the Pittsburgh Penguins could simply decide that they don't want to buy anybody out. Kyle Dubas, as I talked about yesterday, could decide, I think I can probably trade Mikael Granlund. It might not be until after the season begins, but he's always been known for massaging the salary cap. So if the salary cap is your issue, I promise you Kyle Dubas will figure that out. But I think there is a chance that Kyle Dubas decides, I don't want to buy anybody out because I don't want to have to deal with dead cap. And he could just decide that I'll trade Mikael Granlund at some point this season. Or they'll keep him. I mean, that's the lowest % chance that there is of anything. But everything is on the table for the Pittsburgh Penguins when it comes to Mikael Granlund, including, starting Saturday, a potential buyout. That's going to do it for this episode of Penguins to Go. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Remember, you can find us on YouTube at Inside the Penguins. Make sure you like, subscribe, share the video, tell your friends, let them know that we are doing some hopefully work that you enjoy over on Inside the Penguins on YouTube, whether it be Penguins to Go, Tip of the Ice-Burgh, the player videos that we get to put out, or you can follow us anywhere you get your podcast from. Again, subscribe, rate and review. 5 stars would be very appreciated. 4 stars, how about you just DM me that on Instagram or on Twitter or the X or whatever it's called. Mine officially updated today, so I guess I gotta start calling it X now that it's officially that on my phone. But regardless, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.